Hey everyone, thanks for joining me again, and today we'll be taking a look at another DAC. This is the Topping D70 Pro Sabre. This DAC's been around for a few months and you have a lot of reviews out there, but I want to give you my opinion on it. A few weeks ago I reviewed the Octo version of this DAC and I loved that DAC. This one's a little bit different. It definitely has that ESS chip sound, and I'll make this short for you. Quite a bit more detailed than the Octo. The Octo is a little bit warmer, a little bit softer. The edges aren't as defined as this one. Razor sharp imaging. This DAC gives you a ton of focus. Imaging is super precise. The bass, not super strong, but very accurate. The mid-range clarity is wonderful. And the highs do give you a little bit of shimmer, not extreme, so it doesn't give you that fatigue. Really nice sounding all around. It has the same characteristics as my DOC U8, which uses dual ESS 9038 chips. This one using the 9039s. The 9039 brings with it a few extra filters to tune the sound to your liking. I really did like filter number 2 on this unit. The build quality is the same as the Octo version. Fairly solid, beautiful screen, nice encoder, feels great. On the back side, you have your balanced XLR out, single-ended RCA out, coaxial digital in, Toslink optical digital in, USB B port, your port for your Bluetooth, AES CBU, your trigger in, your trigger out, your IEC mains inlet, and a really nice power rocker. Again, I really love the beautiful screen on this unit as well as on the Octo. The D70 Pro Sabre comes in at around $700, and if you like that ESS sound, I definitely put this one on my short list, and I highly recommend it. For this review, I wanted to bring in a good friend of mine to come in and do a little sound demo and compare a few different DACs. So my good friend Jared came over last night and we had a pretty long listening session. And it was his first experience with an external DAC. So this is a conversation we had after listening. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And thank you guys for your support as always. All right guys, so we have my good friend Jared in. He came through to help us review the Topping D70 Pro Sabre edition. I did the Octo a couple of weeks ago. You can go check out that video. But Jared and I ran this DAC next to the SMSL SU1, which is an $80 DAC, the DOC U8, which is a $300 DAC, up against the D70 Sabre at $700. And Jared, what did you think? The first thing, we went blind, right? We had them covered up, so you didn't know what we were listening to. You're new to the DAC world, right? You were just learning about these?
Yep.
What did you think?
The big boy right here, you could definitely tell the difference between this one and the $80 one for sure.
We set up our listening table, sending the same signal to all three DACs via optical cable, and we were playing high-res streams from Tidal, connected to a line switcher, going 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, figuring out the differences between the DACs. So initially, when you were listening to the first DAC compared to the second one, what were your impressions there?
The first DAC compared to the second one, you can definitely tell a difference when it comes to where you're hearing everything. For me, I'm a visual person, so the shape of the sound when I'm listening to it, I listen to everything with my eyes closed, and that helped me really hear the differences and everything. With the first one specifically, the sound, it felt like if you could just picture a giant square right in front of you that's pretty flat. The second one definitely had a lot more depth to it. That was the biggest difference that I found when I was listening to the songs back and forth.
And when we went to number 3?
The differences between number 2 and 3, they had similar qualities, but number 2, it felt more in my face. I could hear it a little bit louder, and it wasn't as crisp and as clear as number 3. Number 3, it felt like it was a little bit farther away. Specifically when it comes to the instruments, I could tell the instruments apart a little bit more. It didn't feel all cluttered together. And like I said, it was definitely a little bit crisper than number 2.
How about the bass quality of the 3? What can you tell me any differences you might have heard in the bass?
The bass, when it comes to the first DAC, it was not as clear as the other two. 2 and 3, specifically number 3, you could really feel and hear like the little
rumbling notes, a little more detailed between the notes.
Yeah, it was much more detailed, and number 1 wasn't as detailed. So the comparison between, I'd say, number 2 and 3 was just clarity-wise. The big difference between 1 and 3. 2 and 3 was a little bit closer.
A little bit tighter?
Yeah.
And the mid-range and the vocals?
When it came to the voices, number 3, when my eyes were closed listening to them, I can hear one song specifically. I can hear a voice right here, I can hear a voice down here, and then when the third voice came in, I could hear it right in front of me. And with the other two, I could not make those distinctions from each other. Number 1 specifically was more blended together, more flat, like all together in this general region. But number 3, here, and then right in front of my face for sure.
Definitely more distinction between the instruments and the vocalists.
Yeah.
Okay. And how about in the highs, like on cymbal hits and little brightness? Did you find any difference between them there?
Yeah, so 2 and 3, when you'd hear the little like triangle instruments, like the
Sure.
you can hear the space in between each hit. You really focus on it, you can hear the and it doesn't just sound like one long like one was not as much space in between for sure.
How about the energy level of the DACs? Did you find one more engaging? The other one was one a little slower, was a little more energetic? What did you find there?
Number 2 definitely felt like it had the most energy. Like I said earlier, it felt like it was more in my face, and that's where the party was. It was more in my face and everything. Number 3, it felt a little bit farther away from me. And number 1, like I said, it felt like no dimensions to it really.
In comparison, it was pretty flat.
Yeah.
Okay, number 1 still is a good DAC, but that's the issue we come across when we start comparing at higher price points. Once you hear the next level up, it's hard to justify the other ones, right?
Yeah.
Once you pass that tipping point, you're like, whoa, there's a pretty dramatic change.
Yeah, within the first like 2 or 3 songs, I was listening to the difference between 2 and 1, and it made me feel like I'm gonna stop going to number 1. I was like, nah, I'm not gonna keep going this one. Then I started comparing 2 and 3 a lot more. Then when I would jump back from 3 to 1, I was like, yeah, I don't know why I keep going back. I'm just gonna keep going 3 and 2.
What about them did you like?
They were much more enjoyable. I definitely felt the depth of everything for 2 and 3 for sure. Number 1, I didn't really feel the depth. It didn't feel like everything was going all around me. It just felt like it was right in front of me.
Yeah, so 2 and 3 put you a little more in there, and
Yeah.
spatially you get more things in space, right?
I was really in the song with 2 and 3. Number
Awesome.
1, I wasn't in the song. I was just watching the song. I wasn't in the song.
About halfway through our listening session, Jared pretty much figured out that there was a lower price point on the first one and progressively going to 2 and to 3. At that point, I removed our covers off of the DACs, and I showed him the SMSL SU1 at $80, the Doak U8 at $300, and the Topping D70 Sabre at $700 or $699. What's your opinion there, having listened to them and knowing the price points of them? You're a young man coming from a person that's new to this audio equipment, the world of DACs. What do you feel the price point wise? Do you see there's any value in any of them? Do you think they're all overpriced? Do you think they're all great deals? What's your perspective as a college student? You're in your mid-20s. What do you think?
Okay, so when it comes to price points, if I had my own music dojo, like my own studio, I would for sure get the big dog right here. I don't have my own studio, unfortunately. I am a broke college student, so if my comparisons are 1 and 2, $80 versus $300, I'd take in consideration of how much it means to me. Like, what am I gonna be doing with this system? If I were to have friends over and everything, I would definitely want number 2, just because it feels like it's more in your face and the energy level from it is definitely felt.
It's more oppressive sound.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in my little dorm, I would definitely go number 1. If I had my own little apartment and everything, I'm definitely going number 2. If I had my own studio and everything, and I need to know the differences between like musical instruments, bass, voice, and everything, I would definitely go number 3.
Yeah, when you want to do that critical listening, number 3 does deliver on the detail, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for like 75% of our listening session, we're using Tidal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're using Tidal. Tidal sounded great. And then I wanted to listen to a song that wasn't on Tidal. So we had it on the TV, and we had the TV stream to the DACs.
Exactly.
Right?
So we had the signal coming into our Fire TV, going to our streamer, that pushing the signal up to the 3 DACs. So it was being sampled at the YouTube sample rate.
Yeah, and like a few songs in, when I was listening to the YouTube songs, I could definitely tell the difference in quality compared to Tidal. I was switching back and forth. On YouTube, I couldn't make those distinctions that I could when I was listening through Tidal. So it definitely made me feel like the YouTube quality when streaming that a lot lower because everything's like compressed, so. Yeah.
At that point, it makes a little less sense to get the little more higher price points, huh?
Yeah, so if you're spending 800,
700 on this one.
If you're spending 700 on the DACs, I probably wouldn't advise you to just stream it through YouTube.
You want a high quality stream.
Yeah,
I think that's a good point right there. They definitely shine when they have a little more data. It brings out that sense of space. Once you start getting the little more compressed music, you do kind of lose those benefits. It doesn't really help too much in that aspect, right? At that point, it's just, you're just listening to music.
One thing I did ask Rick about was if the age of the song like affected the quality. We're listening to, what was it, So Into You by Tamia. We were listening through it on YouTube, couldn't really tell the difference between it, and we switched over to Ty to listen to it. I kind of feel like I still couldn't tell the difference, and so he went to an older song, which was...
We went to Miles Davis, and we also went to little Chet Baker.
Yeah.
I was explaining to Jared that the quality of the recording will make a big deal as well. If you have a poor recorded song, you just aren't going to get as much out of these DACs. Whereas if you have a good recorded song, some of these classics that we had, they did have some noise in the background. However, the imaging was incredible on them, right? What did you feel about some of those trumpet notes?
Yeah, specifically one of the trumpet notes, what song was it?
Chet Baker and Bill Evans, Alone Together.
So the trumpet, it felt like a blade was right in front of my face, just like this. It was like super sharp and super crisp. And that song came out, what, like
62, 63 maybe?
Yeah, it felt like super crisp and sharp. And then that was on the third one. And then when I listened to it on the first DACs, it felt flat and no depth really to it.
The topping DAC, what did this one do for the music?
It made it very clear, very sharp, very crisp.
And the imaging was dead on. You can see the instrument, right?
Yeah. If I was like standing there any longer, I probably would have got hit with the trumpet. Like,
yeah, it's pretty impressive. Huh? Yeah. So what do you think now, having heard these different DACs? I still have this conversation with people who still say, oh, they couldn't possibly sound different. Mm-hmm. What's your perspective after hearing a couple for your first time?
Usually I listen to things on like the $80 end, maybe even less, like AirPods and everything. I didn't know that there was such distinctions when listening to music and everything. But once you hear the quality of number 2 and number 3, it's like almost night and day of what you can and can't hear. I was telling him there was one song we listened to, Target on My Chest by Brent Faiyaz, and there was 3 different parts that I had not heard before when I'm listening on my AirPods or like my headphones or something like that. Yeah, I did not know the quality of
the sound that can be
audio.
achieved.
Yeah, that it could get like that. It's insane.
Awesome. All right, Jared. Well, I want to thank you for coming down and spending some time to listen with me, man. I really appreciate having you on.
Yes,
and hopefully
sir.
we'll have you on again. Next time we have
sir.
some new equipment to compare, I'll holler at you and come on through. I really appreciate your feedback.
Anytime.
All right, guys. Thanks.